Is she back? Is she back? Oh my god, my eyes. Hello, my friends, and welcome. It's been a hot minute. I apologize very a lot. I apologize. I was not expecting to take as long a break from this channel as I did. A whole bunch of nonsense. I will not make any excuses. I have been neglecting this channel, and I'm very sorry about that. But yeah, today I would love to hop right back into it by discussing another case with you guys. This one threw me in for a loop, a whole 360 loop-de-loop, backwards, forwards. I went around the circle. I fell down the rabbit hole, as is the namesake of this channel. I truly did, because I'm not gonna lie to you, I had my judgment hat on, my Judgy McJudgerson hat, and I was reading things that I honestly, I have no words. I think we had better just hop into it, and in this video I will be putting on my makeup so that I'm getting ready with you as I do this. This is gonna be not so long because there's not like that much information, but in general it's one of those cases that's gonna leave you with something. It's gonna make you feel like, why? That's all. Like, the main question in this entire thing is why? Alright, so what is it that makes us different than animals? Think about it. It's the fact that we have the ability to reason, okay, and think and act logically. Even if our instinct is to do something or we want something really badly, it does not always mean that we should act upon our desires, right? You cannot just do whatever it is that you want to do, right? Society would literally run amok, a whole muck. Like, no one in their right mind is like, you know what, I need $500, so I'm just gonna go rob that guy. Like, yes, there are some people who would do that, yeah, and they have done that, but usually you would try to avoid doing such things that are illegal. I think that we can all agree on that, truly. This case is going to annoy a lot of you because so many people absolutely and completely ignored so many insane actions taken by the perpetrator of this case. And we could argue that both of the people that we're talking about today, they were adults at the time, so technically there's nothing anyone could have done. But that simply isn't true. When someone is doing something wrong, it's up to all of us to speak up about it so that the correct repercussions can take place. This is why there's such a thing as the police and the law. Yeah, those exist. There are rules put in place specifically to prevent tragedies such as this one. And it infuriates me so much that everyone just let everything go under the radar the entire time, the whole time. I'm gonna hop right into the case in a second. I apologize for my digression, but I'm going to be talking about this case in a very open way, as if we're just two besties having a conversation about it. So if you would rather listen to something more like documentary style or like facts only about it, like without any bias or personal opinion, just please click off of the video now. No hard feelings, okay? However, I feel like it's just kind of hard in general not to have a strong opinion when it comes to this story. But Anyway, Stephen Pladl was born on April 6th, 1975 in New York. And as a kid, he was often bullied. In articles that I've read with like interviews with his ex-classmate, he said people often made fun of him. And he said, I felt pretty bad for him because he always seemed like a really quiet kid. But if I could look back in time, I would probably be able to see like all of the red flags because there was definitely something off. It was also said that he would wear the same jersey to school every day and never changed for gym class, and he always kept to himself. But so far, no huge red flags except for he was like just the weirdo kid of the school. So in 1995, 20-year-old Stephen Pladl ended up meeting this 15-year-old girl named Alyssa over like a chat room on the internet, and then he ended up traveling to San Antonio, Texas to begin a relationship with her. And then Alyssa ran away with Stephen to live in New York with him. Here's where the story should end because there is absolutely no way in the history of ways, okay, that any parental guardian should have allowed or would have allowed for their 15-year-old to run away to another state with this 20-year-old stranger off of the internet. So let's just go ahead and put a pin in that real quick, but just remember that this is literally where the story could have ended had there been like adults who did anything, because in this entire story it's just gonna be adults fumbling over and over and over again, not knowing what to do or just not caring enough to do the adult thing, which is to be like, no, 20-year-old stranger, you're not gonna take my 15-year-old away with you, okay? And you're 15, you are under my supervision, you're not going to New York. What? No, absolutely not. Granted, I'm not a parent, so I can't like judge, but I can judge. I'm judging, okay? I'm judging because Alyssa really deserved better from her parents. She deserved parents who, even though she may have been like in her mind fully in love with this strange man from the internet, like, oh, I gotta run away with him, he's amazing, he sounds awesome, like the way that he's wooing me, grooming, okay? As a parent, even though you want the best for your child, you don't want to hurt their feelings, right? Because they're a growing adolescent, you would still be like, over my dead body. No. And also maybe call the police? Because, right? So this is definitely one of the main things. Main thing. It's not the main thing, but I would say that this is like step number one, people not doing the thing that they should be doing. Cool. You're gonna make a list? You should make a list throughout this. Make a list and then tell me down below how many red flags people just kind of like ignored throughout this entire case. This will be number one. All right, let's just continue. She then got pregnant at 16, a year later, and then gave birth when she was 17. All right, maybe you're the sort of person who, like me, is, optimistic most of the time. And you're like, okay, well, this random stranger from the internet, this Steven guy, may have groomed this girl on the internet. and swept her off to be with him in New York. Cool. But maybe having had this child, maybe he's grown as a person, and maybe, he's a nice guy through and through inside, deep inside. And now, they're going to have this child, and everything will be fine. And it'll all just be like rainbows and butterflies, and we'll all just get along and sing Kumbaya around the fireplace or the bonfire or whatever. But that's not what happened. No. In an interview, she said he would yell at the baby. He didn't bond with her. He didn't take care of her. He rarely held her. He would do things like cover her mouth when she would cry. He pinched her all over her body and turned her black and blue a couple times. Eventually, he said he couldn't stand the screaming and crying anymore, so he started to place her into the cooler or an ice box. Sometimes he would put a blanket there to keep a crack open. Sometimes he would shut it and wouldn't let me go back to open it. He would make me wait a few minutes until I could go back, and I'd open the cooler, and she would just be gasping for air, drenched in sweat, bruises on her. This is a newborn child, baby. Okay, cool. I would just scoop her up and shut the bedroom door so he couldn't bother me, and I would rock her back and forth and tell her how sorry I was for the life she was having. That is so sad. And once again, where the heck are Alyssa's parents throughout all of this? Because surely they're now grandparents, right? So surely they would take like an interest in their daughter and newly granddaughter, Like, how are things? Are you okay? Like, there's absolutely no mention of the grandparents giving any forms of crap. Not a singular crap. Not a mushy crap, not a hard crap, not a poop. No poops. No poops were given. These people were constipated AF. Alyssa said that she was too frightened to tell anyone about the abuse, so she ended up doing the hardest thing that a mother could possibly do, I think, outside of terminating a pregnancy. She ended up giving up Denise, which was the baby, to a loving family so that she'd be safe. Here's where a lot of you are gonna get annoyed, because you're like, well, why would you decide to give up this baby if he's being abusive to this baby, and not just, leave yourself, right? Why would you give up the child but then remain in the abusive situation with Stephen, who was obviously an aggressive person, to be doing that to a baby? But remember that Alyssa is under Stephen's spell, right? You have to remember that she has been groomed since she was 15, and she's supposed to feel like he's the be-all, end-all of her life, right? Like, he's the love of my life, and even though he's being so aggressive towards my child, I still should stay with him because he's my guy. Like, she's probably going through those kinds of mental hoops that you make for people who are abusive towards you. Anyone who has ever gone through an abusive situation knows that for the longest time, you're going to be the person who makes excuses for that person. You're going to be the person who's like, well, he didn't really mean it. I know what he was trying to do, really. Like, he was just frustrated. He was this, that, and the other. And you're always going to try and make that person out to seem better than the actual truth. Because the actual truth is just, he's a piece of shit. That's all that there is to it. he's just an ass. And you're probably thinking, okay, well, she is the one who wants to give Denise up, but does Stephen say anything, put up a fight or anything like that? No, he's absolutely fine with it. He's like, yeah, I don't want that kid. Good riddance. She cries too much. Cool. So soon after that, Denise got adopted, and she ended up growing up in Wingdale, New York, with her adoptive parents, Kelly and Anthony Fusco, who then ended up changing her name to Katie. In the meantime, Alyssa is over here battling with like an internal struggle between the loss of having to give up her daughter for like the greater good, right? Like to make sure that she is safe and away from the abuse of her now husband. And she knows, well, she is becoming more and more isolated because Stephen is really like controlling and keeping her within his little clutches. Nevertheless, Alyssa continued to live with Stephen in what she recalls as basically a house of horrors. She says, he threatened that if I was gone, he would his brains out with a and figure out a way to record it and make sure that the video got to me. Which is so completely bonkers insane. They ended up getting married in 2006 and they had 2 more daughters, which at the time of the case were 8 and 12. And then they ended up living in Henrico, which is a suburb of Richmond, Virginia. The marriage just continued on to be abusive, because Stephen's temper and also his inability to make a steady income, because he kept on getting fired from like every single job that he had. So that meant that Alyssa had to work several jobs to keep the family afloat. So this guy is not only just horrible in general, he also is unable to like do anything. Do you know what I mean? Like you're an awful person. You're an awful human being. But not only that, you're also unable to care for your 2 daughters that you had, which by the way, they ended up having these kids like 10 years after giving Katie up for adoption, because Alyssa said that, you know, they were more mature now and they were able to take care of kids. Like she felt like they could give parenting another try, which is just a giant side eye. Once again, where are the grandparents in all this? Where are Alyssa's parents? She's still with this guy after all these years. And they know that she had to give up her child because he was abusive. And then she ends up staying with him and then ends up having 2 more kids. Like, and no one's saying anything. Does nobody care? Hello? No one? Which is why I'm saying, you guys, that it makes absolutely no sense. I'm telling you, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I don't know where these people were, what they were doing, why nobody seemed to care, and I feel awful for everyone in this case except Stephen. Apparently, Stephen also kept a lot of guns in the house. 4 or 5 guns, all purchased legally because he had no criminal record. Alyssa says, for a little while I thought he was getting better because he didn't treat the 2 children that they had afterwards like he did Katie. but he was still violent and angry, temperamental and unpredictable. Stephen's outbursts would typically involve tossing furniture around and punching walls, which, huge red flag. Anytime someone punches a wall, get out of there. It makes no sense to do so. Why? What is the purpose of breaking the thing that you need? Like, what is the purpose of breaking your home? Anytime someone destroys something in their house out of frustration, what is the purpose of that? It's your home. Something that is supposed to keep you sanctuary and like comfort and recluse from the outside world and the harshness of the world, and you're breaking it. The thing that is supposed to keep you like comfortable and safe. Big red flag. She also recalls the time when a neighborhood cat crept into the garage and his response was literally to beat it to death with his own hands and maybe some tools, wrapped it up in a trash bag and put it in the garbage because he didn't like cats, which a whole other topic of conversation that we can get into is people who don't like cats, which is usually men. Certain types of men, of course, not all men. We're not gonna go on that route because then people are gonna yell at me. Obviously not all men. Are all men killers? Listen, if you are not a murderer, this does not apply to you. Just so you're aware. Anyways, anytime I hear a man say, I hate cats, dogs are better, it's like you can have a preference for whatever animal, right? You can say, no, I prefer dogs because I'm like more of someone who wants to like wrestle and play and whatever and go outside. I want to be able to take my dog out and like nature and walks and cool. Or you could be like, oh no, I prefer cats because, they're low maintenance and I don't have really much time for walks and stuff, but I also just like to cuddle and I'm a very indoorsy person and I prefer something to cuddle with me. Okay, cool. You can have a preference for whatever sort of animal, but if you say 100% dogs are better because they're loyal and they'll love you and cats, they won't love you immediately, that's like red flag. Because who said that cats are supposed to love you immediately? Who said that any animal is supposed to love you immediately? Who said that any person is supposed to love you immediately? You kind of have to work for affection. And people who prefer dogs above cats, and they're adamant cats are evil, Satan, cats, Satan. Those are the types of people who are like, dogs, you could kick them. You could throw them out in the rain, but they'll always come back to you and they'll love you anyways. And you're just sat there like, sir, why is it that you want to abuse an animal but have it love you at the end of the day? Do you know what I mean? Are you not hearing the red flags there? A cat is an animal that you're going to have to work for. Unlike a dog where you could have people come over and they'll be like, hi, buddy, and he'll just wag his tail and hop on everybody, right? A cat is more like studying the person. Can I trust you? I like you. Or maybe, I prefer just my owner. Thanks, but no thanks. And they might not trust every single person, but once you build that trust with that cat, it's gonna love only you, and it's gonna be pretty attached to that person. And I feel like those adamantly dog people have that sort of thing where they want instant love. They don't want to have to work for it. So anytime I hear like cats are evil, I hate cats, bleh, I instantly have like that goosebumpy feeling, like there's something wrong here. You know, something is a little bit off. Something's a little bit off. But that's just my tangent on that. Feel free to disagree, but you know, that's absolutely fine, because I'm right anyways. So Alyssa says that Stephen never interfered with their youngest daughters. However, she did break down in tears, recalling several incidents, including an occasion where he angrily berated one girl for wetting herself. So basically what he ended up doing was he made her wait in the bathtub for hours after she wet herself, and made her wait until her mom came home so that her mom could clean her up. And like, Alyssa recalls her coming home and hearing like a whimpering coming from the bathroom, and when she opened the door, she was like, "What are you doing in here?" And the girl said, "Can I come out now?" Which is just so sad. And because he didn't want to like clean her up, or what? That was his form of punishment? Nah. Alyssa also says, "My daughter, who is 12, is on the autism spectrum, and he would often call her to her face. I did fight with him, and I did protect my kids. I did keep them away from him at times, but it's always haunted me that I didn't get them away sooner than I did. To this day, they don't miss him at all." So we're going to go ahead and skip to Tony Fusco and his wife, Kelly, adopting a little girl that they renamed Katie, and they raised her with their biological daughter in Dover, about 80 miles north of New York City. They had a very, very normal life, said Carrie Gold, Kelly Fusco's brother, which is Katie's mom, Katie's now adoptive mom. "My nickname for Katie was Pac-Man. She was always eating. She loved animals. She was a vegetarian." Katie was actually an aspiring artist, known at Dover High School for drawing comic strips. Now, when I was reading about her like high school years and her personality, it just brought me back to when I was in high school, because I did the exact same things. I was like the artist of the school. Clearly, I brought that into my adulthood. She actually planned to pursue a career in graphic design, which is what I did as well. So I really felt that connection with her when I was reading all throughout this case, like all of the articles. And I actually checked her online portfolio, which I will leave linked down below for you guys if you'd like to take a look. And this was in her About section under her artist statement. As I've always said, since people began to ask me why I love art, it's all I've ever known. As a child, I copied my mother's old drawings and would present her with each doodle, sketch, and painting. In my teenage years, it was where I found my voice. I learned to communicate my emotions to a wide audience in a way it would grab attention and keep it, typically through humor and relatable situations. I became nearly famous in my oh-so-densely populated high school of roughly 600 students altogether for my spontaneous little comic strips. A pen and something to draw on became a safe place for me. Ink became my weapon against rules and regulations. There wouldn't be a corner in a classroom or park that didn't have a secret little character living on it. Ask an artist why creating is important to them, and they won't ever stop giving out reasons. To be short, for me, a life without art is no life at all. And I absolutely can relate to this, and I agree wholeheartedly. But what really struck me was the little section at the bottom where she outlines her future hopes. One day, hopefully in the near future, art will take an even more important role in my life, and that is my career. My main interest currently is digital advertising. I'll be sure I'm where I want to be when I'm able to use my simple yet powerful piece to plant tiny seeds into the minds of a much larger audience. The popularity of my name is nowhere near as important as the popularity of my artwork, even if that means it remains anonymous. Which is just so completely eerie to me, because now it's like all that we know Katie for is not her art like how she wanted it to be. We know her because of this awful thing that happened, and something that definitely should not have happened, and that was completely preventable and avoidable if people just gave two shits about this poor girl like this entire time, and her mother too. She'd known that she was adopted, like her adoptive parents did not keep that from her. So I assume that what was going on through her mind was something like, all of the questions that a typical person who is adopted have, like, what are my birth parents like? Do we have any things in common? Are these quirks that I have because it's just like this quirk that I have? Or is it because I get some certain traits or characteristics from my birth mom or birth dad? Like, where are they now? Why did they give me up? Like, you would have a lot of questions for them. So she asked her parents what they thought of it, and, they were skeptical and everything, but at the end of the day, what they ended up thinking was, well, she's 18 and old enough to make her own decisions, so she can kind of do whatever she wants. Which, keep this in the back of your mind, because it's going to be one of those things that you're like, because these parents are also much too lenient on their child. What's with all of these lenient parents? Hello? So she found them, messaged them on Facebook. The Pladls were happy to reunite with her. They were messaging, they felt like they had like this instant connection, because it's like exciting. We're getting to re-meet after all these years. It's so cool. Like, how are you? What are you doing? What are your hobbies, interests? She had all these questions and they were happy to answer, so she felt like that instant bond, this instant connection, this familiarity. But instead of going to college in August of 2016, Katie moved in with the Pladls, Alyssa and Stephen, her bio parents. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? That same month that she was meant to go off to college, she was like, I want to like see that connection in real life. Like, I want to meet them. So instead of going to college, she went and lived with them instead. She grabbed all her stuff and then she moved to Henrico County, Virginia that month. Tony and Kelly Fusco were, again, apprehensive, but they thought Katie was old enough to make her own decisions and supported her. Once again, I disagree. Sitting here like completely judging these people. But yes, I am judging these people because sure, she's 18 and sure, those are her biological parents, but that does not make you any less of the parent who literally raised her these past 18 years. You know her better than the people that gave birth to her. Clearly, you raised her. Why are you allowing her to go off with these strangers that gave her up? See? Because they were incapable of caring for her for whatever reason. Maybe you're not even aware. Maybe you don't even know the situation that she's coming from. Maybe CPS removed her from that household. Maybe she was in an abusive household, which she was, and you are like, you don't think about like where she'd come from, this baby of yours, this bundle of joy that was like gifted to your family. You don't wonder where it is that she came from. And she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go back there, and you're like, not weary, or like, no, don't do it. Or even just, okay, sure, I understand this need to connect with your birth family, but I'll come with you. Dad's coming with you, or mom's coming with you. I want to make sure. I want to see with my own eyes what these people are like. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I were a parent, if I had adopted a child and they, at 18 years old, wanted to go meet their biological family, I'd be like, sure, babes. I understand that it's like a burning desire to do that. I'll come with you. I'll keep an eye out on things because mom's here. Do you know what I mean? Like, it makes absolutely no sense to just be like, sure, you're 18, go into the world. Do what you want with these people who we don't know. We don't know what they did to you when you were a child that made it so that you don't live with them anymore. And so in fact, all was not well in the Pladl household because Stephen and Alyssa were not sleeping in the same bedroom, if you know what I mean. Like, they were having some issues together. Like, she had begun to see the light. I feel like after so many years of sustained abuse and, like, you're starting to kind of, like... Okay, so I had to change the camera because that camera's battery died, so I had to do a little switcheroo. Switcheroo. Anywho, Alyssa said she had been suffering a ton of emotional abuse and verbal abuse by her husband for years, and she was like finally coming out of it, you know? She says, I was always walking on eggshells. Whatever his mood was, everybody knew, and that mood was often not happy. A lot of yelling, a lot of things smashed in the house in front of the kids. So let's cut to Katie actually going to go live with her bio parents. As soon as she moved in, Stephen's behavior changed immediately. He began wearing skinny jeans and form-fitting shirts. He shaved his beard and let his hair grow long, which made Alyssa feel like, why is he doing that? But also kind of like, well, he's probably just trying to appeal to his teenage daughter, that he's like a cool young dad, like hip dad, you know? So she kind of brushed it off. But about 6 weeks after Katie moved in, he started sleeping in her room with her, like on the floor by her bed, every night. Like, when she had first wanted to come live with them, like, Alyssa was just thrilled, right? But now it's like, what's happening here? Because she was spending every waking hour with her jobless bio dad while Alyssa went to work every day as a supervisor at her, workplace. Him sleeping on the bedroom floor in Katie's room obviously concerned Alyssa. After he did it, she confronted him and he said it was none of her business, and he stormed out of the house, taking Katie with him. And it's not like Alyssa didn't tell Katie about like all of the horrible abuse that she suffered at the hands of her father when she was a baby. She told her, like, he used to put you in an ice box or whatever, and he'd pinch you until you were black and blue. but it didn't seem to like faze Katie. Like, she just didn't look like she cared at all, you know? She was like, yeah. She said that Katie didn't seem to care very much at all about like all of these tidbits and facts about her dad's life prior to meeting him, like currently. Do you know what I mean? Like, she didn't care how he was before he had met her, so she didn't really care that he was a horrible person, like, to her when she was a baby. So Alyssa finally moved out of the house in November of 2016, so not even that much time has passed since Katie came to come live with them. So August, and then November she moves out. Alyssa moves out, not Katie. She shared custody of the 2 children with him, but in May of 2017, she ends up learning from her 11-year-old daughter's journal some real concerning news. She's, casually going through, her daughter's room, kind of like cleaning up or whatever, and she comes across her daughter's journal, her 11-year-old daughter's journal. And, she's like a regular mom, just kind of, maybe she's curious about, the silly gossip around the middle school of, her 11-year-old daughter. So she's kind of like going through the pages, and she sees the latest journal entry, and she reads, and she learns of the incestuous relationship between Stephen and Katie, and their expecting pregnancy. You heard that correctly. Yes, Stephen and Katie were having a baby. Her daughter wrote in her journal that she and her sister were told by their dad, Stephen, to refer to Katie as their stepmother. I started to become hysterical and I called him, says Alyssa. I said, "Is Katie pregnant with your baby?" And he just said, "I thought you knew. We're in love." I have no words. I have no words for this man. None at all. None. And here's where I have a bone to pick with Alyssa. I know that she is as much a victim in this entire situation as anyone else. Yes, because she was groomed as a child and everything. At 15 years old, she went and lived with this grown man, right? And he's been abusing her ever since, right? But Miss Ma'am finally got out of the situation, and she absolutely could have pushed Katie to maybe come with her. Like, why do you want to stay with your dad? Come with me and your sister. Something. She could have contacted her adopted parents and been like, "Hey, I have very sneaking suspicions here that something's not right. I am currently leaving my husband because he's an abusive person, and your daughter, my daughter also, is living with him, and I don't think that's very good. Can we teamwork together to try and get her out of the situation?" Something could have been done here. Do the adoptive parents not care about what was happening? Are they not in the life of Katie anymore? Is she blocking them out? Is she I don't want to talk to them anymore? Or is Stephen grooming her, manipulating her into not talking to her parents anymore? There's something going on there, because I don't believe that nobody cared at all. That she was just left in the clutches of this man. Good for you for having now the courage to leave this abusive relationship and taking your kids and being strong for you and leaving. But why are you leaving now Katie behind? I know that she's also legal and she can do what she wants and live with whoever she wants, but you know what your husband or ex now is like. You know that he manipulates people because you have been in that situation yourself. So why are you leaving your child? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a little bit just a tiny, teensy bit frustrating. Learning that she just up and left and, like, left her there. Call the police. At least. Do something. Which she ends up doing, but, like, kind of when it's already too late, you know? Because in July of 2017, they were actually illegally married at a romantic lakeside ceremony with Stephen's 72-year-old mother, Grace, and Katie's adoptive parents were in attendance. They were there, witnessing all of this nastiness going on here. And she was fully pregnant, like big round belly, as they're getting married. And everyone's just sitting there like, there are pictures, and you can't help but think there's something wrong with all of the people in this situation. Like, everybody. I have a bone to pick with every single person in this situation. Because, first of all, it's illegal. And so they lied on their forms saying, no, we're not related to one another. And it checked out because nobody really did any kind of, like, checks on this, because her last name was Fusco because she was adopted. So their last names were different. So everyone was like, okay, cool. And so no one said anything. And so they got married illegally. And his mom, aka her grandma, aka also her mother-in-law, is there. And also her adoptive parents are there, witnessing this and being like, yes. Like, testimony at a wedding where your daughter is marrying her dad, her biological dad, with the dad that provided the sperm for which now she is here. Like, I am so... I'm sorry for getting... I'm going to try and calm down just like a tiny second because I'm so confused. Like, it makes no sense. What is happening? Anywho, so before they got married, right, Alyssa's reading all of this in the journal. And it literally says, like, my dad calls her baby also his baby. My dad even says she's my stepmom, WTF. He doesn't even want me to say or call her sister anymore. Like, just all sorts of things that an 11-year-old is not supposed to see, or like, what is that? Like, it's so confusing and weird. And I'll put up like screenshots of the pages of the 11-year-old's diary entries so you can kind of see. She also kind of scribbles in it, like, she's very confused. It's very obvious that she's confused, as are we all. Baby girl, I know. I'm confused too. So after this, Alyssa immediately goes and looks for a protective order, banning Stephen from like coming into contact with her kids, which then ends up triggering a police investigation. So that's how finally the police get involved. Otherwise, it could have just all gone, like, no one would have really done anything about this. Imagine learning that your ex-husband is having a baby with yours and his daughter. And so you're having a grandkid / half child. I don't know how that would even work, but no ma'am. No ma'am. So now we get to the incest charges. So on July 20th, 2017, 2 months after his divorce from Alyssa was finalized, and amid police investigation, Stephen married Katie. So whilst the investigation is going on, they had that big, beautiful wedding at the lake with his mom and her adoptive parents. Whilst the police are like investigating this potential incest thing, they're getting married. Once again, Tony and Kelly Fusco thought there was nothing they could do, nothing that they could do, and decided it was just best to support Katie, which is utter BS, because what do you mean there's nothing you could do? You can literally call the police and say, there's an illegal thing happening here, and we would like for you to stop it. That's my husband there. So Katie ends up giving birth to Bennett, their little baby boy, on September 1st. And she and Stephen moved to a house on a cul-de-sac in North Carolina, just east of Raleigh. And then they get arrested for incest charges in January. A judge ordered them not to have contact with one another, and Stephen's mother, the one that ended up going to their illegal wedding, she ends up getting custody of Bennett. Now, this is the part where I get even more upset. Here's the part where I become frustrated as all heck. Because apart from all of this happening, there are some people who just should never open their mouths ever. And Stephen's lawyer is one of these people. A lawyer, no less. Because he says, and his name is Rick, by the way, Rick Friedman II. He said, there was never an allegation that Stephen Pladl pressured Katie into a relationship. This case is an 18-year-old girl who shows up at the doorstep of a 40-year-old man who's going through difficult times with his wife. Quote, this is a direct quote, okay. They have a bond because they're biologically related. But they never knew each other before they had a sexual relationship. He was head over heels in love with her, so much so that outweighed the issue of them being biologically related. Sir, it's not just an issue because it's an issue. It's an issue because it's illegal and should not have occurred in the first place. And how are you justifying the actions of this guy? Being like, he's just a 40-year-old man. He couldn't help himself. This 18-year-old shows up at his doorstep, and he just can't help it. And so that's why what happened. As if this happens all the time. Like, he's just a 40-year-old man. He couldn't help it and say no to an 18-year-old, his daughter, biologically related to him, 18-year-old. He could not say no. He's a 40-year-old man. What 40-year-old man would say no to their biological daughter? Like, Katie and Stephen were living openly as a husband and wife in Knightdale, North Carolina, when they were arrested in January 2018 and extradited to Henrico County to face charges of incest. Pladl was released 1 month later on a $28,000 bond and barred from talking to Katie, who was bailed and ordered to move back in with her adoptive parents in New York. And I can just imagine the police in this entire case looking at the parents, the adoptive parents, like, and you didn't do a single thing to stop this situation from happening? Like, you lied on the application form saying, yeah, these people are not related? No. Nobody said anything, okay? Okay. In my own humble opinion, both Stephen's mom, Grace, and Katie's adoptive parents should have both faced, like all three of them should have faced repercussions for being testimonies to this illegal wedding. And no one said a single thing. No one tried to stop them. No one told, like, the priest or the minister, whoever the heck it was that married them, that, like, no, stop. Do you know, like, at that point at a wedding where someone's like, if anyone has anything to say, speak now or forever hold your peace. Like, someone would have been like, the groom and bride, they're dad and daughter. By blood. No one. Crickets. So weeks go by, right? And Katie, finally out of the clutches of her husband / dad, has like some clarity of mind. Maybe something comes over her where she's like snapped back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. But she ends up calling him up, breaking the order that they can't have any contact, but that's besides the point. She ends up calling him and being like, yeah, I want like a divorce and I don't want to be with you no more. Like, you're my dad, and it's like weird and icky now. Like, now that we've had some distance, I've realized that it's weird and icky. You know, like the moment of out of body experience or whatever that she was having, that crisis was over, and she was now kind of like thinking clearly, and she's like, no mas, gone. The cut from you, we've both kind of been like arrested for incest, and it's like on our records now, and I kind of have this baby with you, which is both your grandson and also your son with me, and I just feel like it all just got a little too out of hand. This is like, no, bye. Which is awesome, right? But this is the point where the story should have never begun. Any point during the story where it should have ended. It should have ended a long time ago, but if at any point it should have ended, it would have been here. Except it's not the end. So, Bennett was in the custody of Stephen's mom, Grace. Remember, she's 72 years old, so an elderly lady at this point. She should not have been given custody of a newborn, but that's besides the point. There was nothing put in place by the courts to stop Stephen from seeing his son physically, which is also something that should never have been put in place. Like, a lot of these, like, legal systemic failures just, ooh, they grate at me so much. So he ends up going to grandma's house, Grace, and he takes the baby and says that he's gonna just, go take a drive up to New York and present Bennett to his mom, which is Katie, and have like a little mini family reunion type of situation. And Grace, of course, being elderly and like kind of like trusting her son, maybe, was like, yeah, sure, of course, here's your child, and good luck and bon voyage. But what ends up happening is that he ends up calling her a couple hours later, telling her, confessing that he's just murdered his son and he's on his way instead now to see Katie and do who knows what to her, and like goodbye, and hangs up the phone. And she ends up calling the police, and this phone call is also quite irritating because she doesn't really go into detail explaining to the dispatcher that he's going to see his ex-wife / also his daughter, and there's like a whole incestuous illegal thing, and like they were both put in jail for this, and also they're not allowed to have she doesn't really go into detail explaining this clearly. She's like, yeah, he's gonna go see the ex-wife, and he told me that he just murdered my grandson. Oh God, and like, I understand that she's an elderly lady, don't come for me, I know, but also, when you're calling the police, you have to put a little bit of like context immediately in there, otherwise they're gonna think like, oh, it's just kind of like an over-exaggeration, like it's no big deal. But you have to be like, listen, they're not allowed to have contact. They had an incestuous relationship resulting in this child, which he just said that he killed. And now he's on his way to see her, and I need you guys to go and, like, help, please. Perhaps something a little bit along those lines, but, you know, I can kind of understand that she's going through something, you know. But by the time that he called her and everything, he'd already driven 600 miles to ambush Katie as she left her house with her 56-year-old adoptive father, Anthony Fusco. He followed their truck to New Milford, Connecticut before opening fire and shooting them both down at their truck. There's also another 911 call placed at this time by like just a passerby who saw the whole situation unfolding, and he ends up calling the police and telling them exactly what gone on. And I will also be playing this clip so you guys can get a little bit of context. But this is the sort of situation, the sort of thing that you would hope for when you are a dispatcher or a police officer. You want someone to give you like reactive clues, instant clues, so that you could get the help that you need immediately, and not someone that kind of like just like stalls.
911, address of the emergency.
Yes. My son just called me, and he told me oh my God, North Carolina, he killed his baby, and he's in the house.
Okay, you said that he told you he killed his baby? Okay, ma'am, listen to me. What's your name? Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
He's not home. His wife broke up with him over the phone yesterday, and he told me, she's in New York, and he told me he was on his way. He called me last night and said he's on his way. He's going to bring the baby to her, and then he was coming back. And he just
okay.
He said he killed his wife, he killed her father, and I can't even believe this is happening.
Okay. And did this happen in Nightdale?
No, his wife and father are in New York.
Okay,
and,
so the incident
but
actually...
he left the baby dead when he left.
Okay, where did he leave the baby?
Okay, he said it was in the...
What's your son's name? What's his last name?
Same as mine.
When did this happen?
He said he left last night. He called me, I forget, maybe about 7 last night, and said he was on his way to New York. He was going to bring to his wife and give it to her, and then he'd be back. And he called me this morning. I just got off the phone just a couple of minutes ago, and oh God, he told me to call the police, that I shouldn't go over there.
Okay, so the son is so your son is not there?
No, the house is empty. He said he put a key under the front mat. A key to get into the house under the front mat.
Did he say how he did it? Or what he did?
And I didn't ask him. I didn't want to know. Oh, my God. He's such a wonderful little...
Okay. Hold on just a second, okay? Okay.
Hello?
Okay, I'm still here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get you over to Raleigh Communications, okay? Let me talk first when I call, okay, so I can kind of give them an idea of what was going on, and then I'm going to let you speak with a telecommunicator, okay? All right, hold on for me, okay?
Okay.
Anyways, a short while later, Stephen Pladl's body was found over the state border in Dover, New York, and the cause of death was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So back in Virginia, Alyssa had been informed of what happened to Bennett. I'm pretty sure because either her ex-mother-in-law called her up or someone by word of mouth, it got to her. It's crazy because instinctively she Googled self-inflicted gunshot wound New York because it was something that he'd always told her. Remember at the beginning, he'd always said, if you ever leave me, I'm going to do this because I can't live without you. So I'm thinking that instead of Alyssa, he then latched onto Katie and performed basically the exact same thing that he had always threatened Alyssa with. He then actually ended up doing it with Katie. Very abusive sort of talk. Remember at the beginning I was telling you that? It brought up the article with the picture of Katie and her adoptive father and a pickup truck full of blood, she said. And that's how I discovered she was dead. So then it had to come time for Alyssa to break the news to her daughters, right? That their father and also Katie and also their nephew now / brother, all dead. And also the adoptive father, Anthony, all dead. She says, when asked why, I told them that their father had killed them all and then killed himself. I've never seen such shock on children's faces before, just absolute devastation. Katie Bennett and Anthony Fusco were laid to rest on April 21st at St. Charles Borromeo Church in Dover Plains, New York. Alyssa ended up sending flowers, but she decided not to go publicly, like in person, to just like avoid any media attention or anything like that, because it was going to be obviously full of paparazzi and people taking photos and everything, and she just wanted to kind of let the families grieve on their own, you know? She says, it's been a difficult roller coaster of emotions because I'm so devastated by the loss of Katie and her adoptive dad and baby, but it's such a relief that I don't have to look over my shoulder anymore to see if Steve is there. Every single day, I've played it out in my head. What if he's in the back of my Jeep getting ready to me? Sometimes I had such horrible paranoia that I had to stop whatever I was doing and drive home to make sure everything was okay. And that, my friends, is the end of the case. Let's recap a little bit. Did you guys do what I asked at the beginning, and did you write down all of the red flags as you heard them? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Let's talk about it down below. But as a recap, let me just end this by summarizing, if I could summarize it all. There have been studies done to kind of like explain away what Stephen and Katie were going through when they fell madly head over heels for one another, and that is genetic sexual attraction, where basically family members that didn't like grow up within the same vicinity, or like you never saw a lot of, or if ever, end up having this very strong sexual attraction to one another. And it's a very interesting phenomenon. There are a lot of cases that actually have been studied about this, and I'll try to find some links if you're interested or curious about the psychology behind all of this, and also different cases where this has made itself prevalent. But when it comes to Katie and her dad, Stephen, this entire thing could have been prevented at the very beginning with Alyssa's parents when she was just 15 years old. Your 15-year-old child cannot make decisions like that on their own. To leave home, not finish high school, nothing like that. Leave home and go live with a 20-year-old man. Shouldn't have happened. Let's just say that. Let's just say it like it is, because people beat around the bush trying to be as politically correct about things as much as they want, but that should not have happened. Case in point, case closed. Those parents are at fault 100%. I feel so sorry for Alyssa that she had to go through such abuse on both ends, because parents who let their kids do whatever they want, let their kids get taken by creepy older men on the internet, that's abusive. So if it was up to me, this entire thing would not have occurred, because you would bet your bottom dollar that my Sicilian ass would grab that little girl by the tail end and drag her back home and cut the internet off and not allow her anywhere near that guy and get a restraining order. Like that. Absolutely not today. Then, skipping forward to them two getting married and no one saying a single thing? Attending the wedding and not saying a single thing to like the pastor, the priest, or whoever it is that married them. Nothing at all. Being okay with that? Being okay with her getting pregnant by her dad? You're all a little bit too. Absolutely not. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. You feel me? You know what I mean? Everything, all of this, just all of it, wrong. Anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts about all of this. Let's have a conversation down below about it, because I know that we're all feeling some sort of way. And I just love to talk to other people who get just as frustrated as I do. So it's like a nice kind of cathartic experience, just kind of getting all of our frustrations out and also spreading the word about this, because when you know and when you see that something is not right, say something. Don't just be like, well, she's old enough to make her own decisions, I guess. Let's be for real. If you cared at all about someone, you would not allow for such a thing to happen. You'd cut it at the source. You'd be like, no, I'm not letting you go meet these random strangers. I know that they're your bio parents, but I'm not letting you go by yourself. I want to also meet who it is that you're about to go live with, first of all. Second of all, you're in love with who now, Miss Ma'am? Get your booty back home and go to school, and I'm getting a restraining order. That's number 2. That's number 2. Okay. Number 3, calling the police. Anyways, that's just my opinion, so don't come for me. But also I'm right, so you wouldn't come for me anyways. And I just noticed that the microphones died, so I don't know when they died, but I just know that they died. Hopefully they didn't die like an hour ago and I've just been talking to these things here. They're right here. Anyways, I never really know how to finish these things off, so I'm just gonna go now. And I hope that you have a beautiful, wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe, and if you see something that is not right, speak up about it. Don't be like these people that keep quiet and like see nothing, say nothing, let things fly by, go under the radar, let all the bad things keep going on like right in front of your nose. Don't do that. Say something, okay? If you can, do it. All right? So also do let me know what other cases you'd like to hear about next, and drop them down into the comments, and I will try to make more content for you. I promise.